Seventh grade. Last video, all I heard was, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Bruce is so white. Mr. Bruce, go get a tan. Mr. Bruce, why are you showing your pasty white shoulders?" Okay, so once again, snarky comments have led me to realize that the real reason you guys are saying this is because you want me to tell jokes about being pale or pasty. Okay, I guess I will. Uh, why was Kylo Ren so pale? Because he could never catch any rays. Oh man. Uh, Someone asked me. They saw me walking around like this today, and they're like, "Man, you're really pale. Are you okay? Are you all right?" And I said, "No, I'm half left." Okay, that was really dumb. Uh, Man, back when I was with my girlfriend, I would say, the reason you got to stick with me is because I'm so pasty. Yes. All right. So there you go. Some good pale skin jokes for you guys. All right. We are doing a lesson on the Catholic letters because the Catholic letters, like the second letter of St. Peter, are pretty similar to each other. It makes sense to learn them in tandem. So that's what we're going to be doing. And then after we finish Jude, you're going to have a test or a quiz, I don't know which, on basically everything we've covered as far as the New Testament letters go. All right. So, yes, the letter of St. Jude. It's one of the Catholic letters. It is written in the late 60s, Anno Domini. So I believe I've already gone over what Catholic letters are with you guys. So actually, I don't remember. So I'm going to go over this slide again. If you've seen this before, which you might have, you can ignore this part. You can skip ahead. But I'm going to go over it real quickly here. So we have 21 letters in the New Testament. These letters are also called epistles or essays. It all means the same thing. Excuse me, sneeze. Don't worry. I'm not coming down with any weird Chinese viruses or anything like that. I'm just getting some allergies from my garage. Been moving a lot of stuff in here lately. um, Anyways, as I was saying, there are 21 New Testament epistles. St. Paul wrote either 14 or 15 or 13 of them, something like that, but we'll just say 14. And then the remaining epistles are called the Catholic letters. Paul would have written, the one that's in dispute is Hebrews. We don't know if Paul wrote Hebrews or not. If Paul wrote Hebrews, he wrote 14. If not, he wrote 13. The remaining 7 are the Catholic letters. So this would be the letter of St. James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. We don't read John in 7th grade. Well, we might if we have time at the end of the year. I don't know. And, of course, the letter of St. Jude, which we're reading now. And so these are called the Catholic letters, and they're called the Catholic letters for 2 reasons. Number one, it's just an easy term we use to distinguish them from the other New Testament letters written by St. Paul. And then the other reason we call them the Catholic letters is because this is what a lot of the church fathers and historians of the church have always called them. So Origen of Alexandria is a church father. He called it the Catholic letters. Eusebius was an ancient historian. He called it the Catholic letters. St. Jerome, a church father, called it the Catholic letters. They're called the Catholic letters because 5 of them were written for the whole church. They weren't written for a specific person or group. So Paul's letters were written for a particular group or person or place. 5 of the 7 Catholic letters are written for like a really large group of Christians in general. All right, so St. Jude, who was the author of this letter? So this is a Renaissance painting of St. Jude. I forget who painted it, but it's a famous one. Jude has another name in the Bible called Thaddeus. It's the same person. Jude and Thaddeus are the same person. He's one of the 12 apostles, and he was probably the brother of the apostle James the Lesser, who also is the likely author of the letter of St. James. So if this is the case, if he's related to James the Lesser, James the Lesser is actually related to Jesus. So James the Lesser was probably like a cousin of Jesus. Maybe like a more distant relative of Jesus. We know James the Lesser and Jesus were related. So if Jude is related to James the Lesser, that means Jude is also related to Jesus. A lot of you might know St. Jude from the fact that he's a popular patron saint that people like to ask to intercede for them. So he's a patron saint of desperate cases and lost causes. So when it seems like all hope is lost, we can always ask for the intercession of St. Jude for a miracle. Right? So he's a powerful intercessor. St. Jude is also the name of St. Jude's Children's Hospital, named after the saint. All right, let's talk about some background information about this letter. So Jude does not address his letter to a specific group. It's intended for Christians in general. So this is one of those 5 Catholic letters that's meant for just kind of like the whole church in general. Although it's probably the case that when Jude first wrote the letter, he knew it would go first to Christians who had recently converted from Judaism. Right? It's possible that the letter of St. Jude was sent around alongside the letter of St. James, and that these 2 letters traveled together. Now, when I say these letters traveled together, keep in mind that people were making hand copies of these letters when they got them. So you would get one of the letters, and then you would have a scribe or a secretary or someone hand copy the letter onto a different parchment or scroll or whatever. And then different copies of these letters would be sent out. But anyways, we think this letter was paired up with the letter of St. James, and that wherever the letter of St. James went, the letter of St. Jude went as well. If this is the case, then that means that the letter would have been intended for what the letter of St. James was intended for. And these are Christians who live in pagan places, in Gentile areas. So Christians who used to be Jewish, but are now Christian, who live in places where there are not a lot of Christians or Jews around, right? And in the early church, this was actually the majority of Christians. So this is why we say the letter of St. Jude was written not for a specific group, but for most Christians in general. So why does Jude write this letter? Well, he writes it to prevent apostasy. Apostasy is a really, really big problem in the church at this time. Right? So apostasy happens when a baptized person rejects a part of Christianity or leaves Christianity altogether. Right? Apostasy is a grave sin. It's a very, very serious sin. And it's especially dangerous in the early church because if people were to apostatize in the early church, then the church's reputation would be severely wounded. People would start to doubt whether or not Jesus actually rose from the dead. Right? So if you're a baptized person and you say, all right, I'm Christian, but I don't believe that the body and blood of Jesus are present in the Mass in the form of the Eucharist, right? I don't actually believe that what we eat is literally Jesus' body and blood, right? You would be committing apostasy by doing that, right? Because you're rejecting a fundamental aspect of the Catholic faith. Likewise, if you're a baptized person and you became an adult and you're like, you know what? I just don't believe in God anymore. I think it makes more sense that there is no God. So I reject my Christian beliefs. Right? That would be apostasy too. So why is apostasy a problem? It's because there's a lot of wicked teachers in the early church who have infiltrated these Christian communities and are spreading heresies. So these are false teachings about Christian freedom. They're spreading false teachings about Christian freedom that threaten the church, that encourage people to commit apostasy. Right? So these false teachers are really, really dangerous. So Jude wants to protect his Christian readers from these false teachers, from committing apostasy, and more specifically, he wants to prevent them or protect them from the temptations of two types of sins: sexual sins and greed. Right? These are two really, really dangerous sins that these false teachers are kind of shoveling into these Christian communities. Right? They're saying, oh, yeah, Christianity's great, but its teachings about the importance of giving to the poor, yeah, that's not really something that we like, right? So you can be a Christian and you could just think, I don't need to care about the poor at all, right? Well, that would be a form of a heresy, right? Or likewise, oh yeah, Christianity's great. Jesus is all about love, and even though I'm already married to someone, I'm going to go get married to someone else because I don't think Jesus and the church were serious when they said that divorce and remarriage is wrong, right? That would be a heresy to accept that. So Jude wants to protect people from those temptations. Okay. So yeah, the next lesson I'll pick up with Jude chapter 1.